Our final guest today is Richard Vague, and he is Secretary of Banking and Securities for the state of Pennsylvania. He's also the author of the upcoming Illustrated Business History of the United States to be released in May 2021. I have to tell all of you about this illustrated history of business history. I've actually looked at the proofs for it. We used to do really colorful, beautiful artwork in the banknotes and history. It's going to be a great coffee book table, great Christmas present. Just want to share that. A little bit of plug for you, Secretary Vague. So, Secretary Vague, let me ask you, as we've been talking about small businesses, and you're in Philadelphia, but you're also in the state capital of Pennsylvania, and I'd love to kind of take the temperature, again, not to do a rah-rah event, but where are we in the state of small businesses in your state? Are they coming through? Are they floundering? Are you still worried that there's sinkage out there?
It's still a rough battle out there. A lot of folks are doing a lot better, but there's a lot of folks that are still fully under adverse circumstances and struggling to stay afloat, struggling to restart their businesses. So, I think we're perhaps getting a little too optimistic a little too soon. There's a lot of work left to do.
And on this, when you kind of look at the profile, you and I were talking the other day, and you said, one of the things that has not been on the radar screen of a lot of folks is there's a lot of innovation going on in small biotech. That biotech in the greater Philadelphia area is a story that hasn't been told. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think every city has to find out what its competitive advantage is. There's a lot of things that Philadelphia does that aren't necessarily better than is done in Dallas or New York or Chicago or Baltimore. So we really have to focus on what it is that can take us to the head of the pack. And in Philadelphia, without question, that is genetic engineering and biotech through the University of Pennsylvania primarily, but a lot of other great research institutions. There's more innovation happening here in genetic engineering, particularly around cancer, than anywhere else in the world. And historically, that's just been an academic pursuit. But what we see now is the university systems are learning how to commercialize this. So we've had a bevy, a plethora of startup biotech businesses in Philadelphia that I think are the real future of this city.
That's fascinating to hear. When you look at I know that you're a regulator of banking and securities in the state and you're looking at this, but I also think we've been hearing stories of the need for more capital, put behind businesses, sort of look at, and even our sponsor day is sort of looking at what they're doing in Black and brown communities to help, engender greater economic growth and opportunity there. But, do banks have their aperture open widely enough right now on loans, or do they have it too wide? I had Larry Summers in an interview yesterday, and he said, Steve, the economy is rocking, and we should not be juicing it more. And he's worried about some of the Biden bills coming in to really send us over the top into economically dangerous areas, which was interesting to hear. But I'd love to get your sense on the banking sector and loans to private businesses. Is it where it should be right now, or do you worry that we're getting frothy, to quote Jay Powell?
Well, I don't really worry yet about being frothy. We're not going to get the recipe just right. There's going to be some areas that are frothy and some that are continue to be problematic. So we don't have the luxury of being able to figure that out exactly because we're trying to get things done in a hurry. But there is a lot of money in the economy. The Fed the government has spent several $1 trillion. That's new money out in the economy. Banks have a lot of money to spend. I believe PNC, which is our great institution in Pittsburgh, just announced an $88 billion program for supporting a variety of things, including small businesses. So there's a lot of money out there. I think it's a matter of channeling it properly.
One of the things Daryl Clark shared up here a little bit, he said, if you are, of one part of society, and if you're white and you have it, you can have multiple chances at bat. You can fail, you'll get another chance. You can fail. He said in the black community, that's not true. That he sort of feels that one of the things that is a problem in Philadelphia with businesses is that you have uneven opportunities among that are divided by race. Love to get your insights into that. And as someone who thinks about policy a lot, what can we do to shift that sense of creating, another chance for people after? Because failure is part of succeeding, right? Failure is part of learning.
I think there has been a sea change, perhaps in the country, but certainly in Philadelphia. The attitude that you suggest may well have existed in the past, but I've been in banking a long time. I have never seen the kind of attitude, the kind of pro black and brown business attitude pervasively held across the banking community as it is now. I just mentioned the program at PNC. One of your earlier guests mentioned a $100 million program of this exact kind of lending by a coalition of banks here in the Philadelphia area. I'm part of a group headed up by a gentleman in town named Michael Foreman, specifically trying to energize business in the black and brown communities through a variety of efforts, from training to lending to everything, to equity to everything in between. So I think if that existed in the past, it doesn't exist at the moment.
Fascinating. I'm sure you've been watching the things that are unrolling from President Biden, the American Jobs Plan, the American Recovery Act, the infrastructure bill, things around this. Do you think Pennsylvania is aligned well for these initiatives coming out of the federal government, or there are blind spots, policy blind spots that you want to warn Washington policymakers to be wary of?
I don't want to warn Washington because, in my opinion, and I think you and others have far more insight than I do, I think the response of the Federal Reserve Bank has been historic. I think the initiative to support the economy since the pandemic began were unimaginable a year and a half ago. I think what's been done has been magnificent. And I will tell you, I have insight into the state and municipal budgets and a lot of businesses around town. There's a lot of money. So I'm not going to tell Washington anything one way or the other in terms of curbing their enthusiasm. But I will say there is an enormous amount of work in channeling this money properly. Anytime a system deploys something this large, this rapidly, there's a lot of opportunity for fraud, corruption, misallocation of resources. That certain amount of that's inevitable. So that's the real challenge, I think, in front of us right now.
Let me just finally, Richard, ask you to take your Secretary of Banking hat off for a moment and put your author about economic disasters hat on. And, I want to tell our audience he's written many books, but one of them is called A Brief History of Doom, a chronicle of major world financial crises. And also another book, The Next Economic Disaster, which essentially saw much of what was coming undone in China at that time coming undone. I'm just sort of interested, given the calipers and the data that you look at, and I know you have gone back and done a lot of research on debt, private sector debt, public debt, and looked at the behavior of economies all around the world and through history. And I'm just interested, as you look at the United States today, how would you grade us in terms of economic risk in the aggregate? Are we in good shape? Are we in bad shape? What would you share with us, given your expertise in this area?
We watch this very, very closely, as you might imagine. I think we're in okay shape. Shape, given all the pain. I think we got a lot of work to get ourselves all the way out of that pain. But compared to where we could have been, we're in good shape. And I do not think, except for little pockets here and there, I don't think we're at risk of speculative buildups that are excessive of the type that we experienced in the mid to late 1980s and in 2008. So we'll have problems here and there. Generally speaking, I think we're in pretty good shape.
When is your book going to be out, the banknote book? And what's it called?
Well, frankly, any day now. We understand it's on the way to the warehouse. So,
wow.
I'll get you a copy as soon as I get one.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, Richard Vague, Secretary of Banking and Securities for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts.
Can I say thanks to you and to Wells Fargo? It's great of you guys to be doing such important work.
Richard, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of our program today. A big thank you, as Richard just said, to Wells Fargo for its support of the program and to all of you in the audience for joining us. For those of you who missed these cool conversations, you can go up to our video on our website shortly and watch them many, many times over, share them with your friends, etc. I'm Steve Clemons. Have a great day. Be well.